Earlier this year, MOZA released the TSW Truck Wheel, which is a truck sim wheel aimed at people who play the truck sim games. Now, it goes without saying that this is an enormous wheel. At 400mm, it is literally in a class of its own. So even if you have a dedicated sim rig, this wheel is so big that it's going to hit your knees and block your monitor, just generally kind of be in the way. So for both people who need desk clamps and people who have sim rigs, one of, if not the most important accessory is the Truck Mount Bracket. This is a MOZA accessory that lets you adjust the height and the angle of the wheel, so it's a little more practical for the TSW. In this video, I'm going to show you how to assemble and adjust the Truck Mount Bracket. I'll also show you how to assemble the shifter desk mount. The assembly can be a little bit tricky, but all of the instructions are printed on the back of the box. The first thing we're going to do is take a look at all the hardware and make sure that nothing is missing. We're going to have two types of screws. You'll notice that they're both M6, but one of them is a little bit longer than the other. We're going to have 4 of those short ones and 10 of the long ones. We'll have 2 types of washers as well, fender washer and lock washer. There should be 10 of the lock washers and 14 of the fender washers, one for every screw. If you don't know how to tell these apart, it's really easy. The lock washer is the smaller one with a little cut in it. There is also a quote-unquote correct way to use these, and that is that the lock washer needs to go on before the fender washer. The entire assembly can be done with one tool, which is included, and that is this Allen key you see here. The first step is to attach the left and right plates to the middle mount frame, and make sure you put these in the correct orientation, otherwise it won't rotate correctly. We're going to use the long screws to attach these, 3 per side, and each of those screws is going to take a fender and a lock washer. I do not tighten them all the way down at this step because we're going to tighten them down later when we set the angle. Now we're going to use those 4 short screws to attach the frame assembly to the wheelbase. Again, make sure that everything is oriented correctly, and you can also optionally use a fender washer if needed. The next step is to attach the clamp brackets to the left and right plate. Once again, make sure you're using the correct orientation here. This step will also determine the height of the wheel. I personally prefer to have it as low as possible, so I use the bottom hole. We're going to use our 4 remaining screws, and each of them will also need a lock washer and fender washer. The last step is to attach it to the desk and set the angle. Tighten the clamps on both sides until they're snug. Tilt the wheel up so it's close to the angle you think you'll want it at, and then tighten one of the screws, but don't tighten the other ones just yet. Next, we're going to see how the wheel feels at that angle. Grab your wheel and attach it, and then pull up your chair and physically play around with it to see how it feels. If it feels weird or uncomfortable, just adjust it, play with it until it's at the right angle, then use that Allen key to lock it in. So now that the truck mount is set up, we can talk about the shifter mount. Let's take a look at the hardware. You should have 4 long screws that each have a little dot of blue Loctite on the end, and you should have 4 countersunk screws. You also have 4 fender washers you see here. We're gonna need 2 Allen keys for this one. Again, both of these are included, and you'll notice that one of them is a little bit smaller. That smaller one is for the countersunk screws. The first step is to attach the base plate to the clamp brackets using the countersunk screws. Now we're going to attach the shifter to the base plate using those remaining 4 screws and washers. Make sure the orientation is correct. You want the shifter facing you once it's attached. Put the shifter on the desk and then tighten the clamps until they're snug. By the way, if you're trying to run the wire under your desk, one thing you can do to make it a little bit cleaner is actually run it underneath the shifter between the shifter and the desk. That'll be it for this video. I hope you found it helpful or informative. In any case, if you do have any feedback, please let me know in the comments below. My full review of the TSW should be up soon, and I'll also have an assembly video for the SRP pedals. I hope to see you then.